You're watching BCTV. We're all about Brantford. You're watching BCTV, Brantford Government Television, a service of Brantford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Brantford.
Okay, welcome. We are going to start the Board of Selectmen's, special Board of Selectmen's meeting for July 22nd to order. Just remind everybody, we do have some presenters as well as citizens who may be participating through Zoom. If you would like to speak, just raise your hand to be acknowledged, and we will call on you. All right, with that, we'll get to order. Item 1, a motion to go into executive session to discuss a proposed settlement in the Butin versus Town of Brantford lawsuit. It's been moved and seconded. For the record, we'll invite Attorney Allen in to present. All right, all in favor say aye. 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 Thank you. We will return. Okay, can I get a motion to go back into regular session?
Motion to go back.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are back in regular session. For the record, no votes were taken while in the executive session. Item 2, to consider and if appropriate approve a proposed settlement in the Butin versus Town of Brantford lawsuit. Can I get a motion to approve the settlement as presented by Attorney Allen?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented by Attorney Allen.
Second.
All right, it's been moved second in discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 3, to consider and if appropriate approve a request from Brian Devlin, Superintendent, WPCF, to waive an informality in the bid proposal submitted by in situ form for trenchless utility rehabilitation project. We have on Zoom with us Brian, and welcome Brian here. He took over Dan Gregory, as you may know, the former superintendent, has retired, and we proudly appointed Brian Devlin as the acting superintendent. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Jamie. I can give you a rundown of the Citra form. When they had the bid, they had addendum number 3 in the required location of the bid form. Addendum number 3 discussed in the bid opening as a virtual opening and would not affect the in Citra form's price. So we this oversight as an informality under the Article 19 of the instructions to bidders for construction project, section 00200 of the bid documents, and recommend waiving this oversight as an informality.
Okay. All right, thank you, Brian. And I think just for the record, maybe just important for residents to know, this is for relining of a number of our sewer mains that the crews videoed last year at some point, put an estimate together and evaluated the conditions. Over time, these sewer mains will deteriorate, a lot to do with the gases that are inside the pipe, eat away at the concrete, and they actually come in and reline them. It's a cost-effective way of maintaining our very important infrastructure. We're all probably heard in the news not too long ago of a a collapse that occurred in a neighboring town and the impact that that had on not only that town, but several towns in the area. So I think this is an important project to move forward with. I don't know if anybody has any questions regarding the bid. Again, it's just a informality in the bid. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Selectman Higgins, seconded by Selectman Dunbar. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passed unanimous. Item 4, to consider and if appropriate, approve a request for the bid waiver from Brian Devlin, Superintendent WPCF, for the cost and installation of a variable frequency drive VFD for the thickened waste activated sludge pump at the Water Pollution Control Facility and award the contract to Sartron LLC for a total cost of $21,127. Brian?
Yes, Jamie, Brian Devlin, Superintendent. We had a particular drive that runs an important part of our bell press process, and we actually had a problem where the components malfunctioned and we had a short in the drive. So we need to replace the drive, and in our facility, we uniformly have Westcala drives that are tied into our SCADA. So I would like to stick with it and get the thing put in as soon as I can. It's been online for about 19, 20 years every day working. So it just it needs to be replaced, actually. So that's where we're at that point now. I need a new one, actually.
Okay. Thanks. Any questions? Part of the processing. All right. Motion to waive bid by Selectman Dunbar, seconded by Selectman Higgins. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
Item 5, reappointments. Board of Finance, 3 years. Charles Shelton Jr. and Victor Casella. Terms to expire July 31st, 2023.
Motion to approve.
All right. Moved by Selectman Higgins, seconded by Selectman Dunbar.
Comment, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Wayne Cook commenting on the item. You know, obviously these are two longstanding members of the Board of Finance, and they're both, you know, upstanding members of the community. But personally, I have a serious problem the way that the Board of Finance is conducting themselves in general. And I think it's time that the community, the Board of Selectmen who appoints the Board of Finance, take a serious look at the makeup of that board. To me, they're acting with uncharacteristic unaccountability, lack of transparency, to the point of the chairman, and I've known Chairman Mooney for over 50 years, he's becoming outright arrogant in his positions. I mean, I asked him straight out questions that I think were very relevant, such as, why are we sitting there with, in essence, $45 million surplus in both the fund balance and then the insurance fund? There's even more in the retirement fund. And he just dismisses it like it's not my business or the community's business. You know, what kind of nonsense is that? You know, my general observation of the Board of Finance is they don't ask good questions. They don't ask hardly any questions about anything that comes before them. The only one I can remember that asked, Charlie Shelton does ask questions, but they're not questions that are relevant to the issue. The only thing I remember ever doing that is Jennifer Aniskovich. I mean, say what you want about, her views on things, but she did hit to the essence of many issues. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for Jennifer Aniskovich, I don't think you would have the community house now. She stopped that in its track, along with citizens such as myself. And she also was the first one to sound the trumpet on the trumpet on the middle school. There's something seriously wrong down there, which we all knew. But, that's the kind of people we need on the Board of Finance. Not people who sit there, quite frankly, and rubber stamp everything in front of them. And I know them all. But I don't think what they're doing is the benefit community. And I would make a very strong, argument on that issue. I think you got to think about term limits. You got to think about diversity of the Board of Finance. There's no women on there. Not that you have to have women, but I mean, it helps. They have different perspectives that, I think nobody would argue are very helpful sometimes. I know the women in my life always have. So, I think these are things you got to look at. And, I'm sure you're going to okay these two guys. I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but, the Board of Finance is a critical position in this town. And it just doesn't make sense to me why they don't do more to, look at the issues, answer citizens' questions. I mean, and the other thing is too, and I'll finish with this because I don't want to go on and on about this one, but, last night they had a meeting and I was set to go and ask a few questions and it wasn't on Zoom. Well, what's that all about? I mean, since when did they have authority to lift the governor's and the whole state's, position on this? I mean, if you don't have a Zoom meeting, that means that they expect this to be a live meeting. So what, 200 people show up, that's okay? And I mean, I don't even know why they couldn't have a Zoom unless they didn't want to answer questions. It's not very hard to set up a Zoom meeting. I think, your assistant would confirm that. So why not a Zoom meeting? And then we had to watch it on Facebook and nobody could participate, although they did vote on a number of issues, or at least 2 or 3 issues. This is the kind of stuff that's going on. And I think that, you as first selectman, your 2 selectmen, have to be very aware of this. Because most people don't know it. Most people got, they got their things going on. But the Board of Finance has turned into a major, in my opinion, and I think it's a fair opinion, disappointment. Very, very big disappointment. They're not accountable. They're not transparent. I mean, for example, one more thing. $6 million transfer. A $6 million transfer from one account, the insurance account, to another, the retirement account, and they don't even tell the RTM. Well, that's their job. That's their job. You can't be transferring. I mean, I've seen $10 transfers that the RTM knows about, and the Board of Finance is transferring $6 million, and they don't tell why. Matter of fact, if you look at the agenda, they didn't even tell what the amount was. They just did it. I mean, they're transferring $6 million from one account to another, and they don't even put it on the agenda that they're transferring $6 million. Now, what is that all about? So these are valid concerns. And I mean, you know me, I've gone through valid concerns in a number of administrations. This is a major one. It's a major one you got to look at. So reappoint Charlie and Victor, fine. That doesn't eliminate the problem.
Okay, thanks for your comments. I think that the fact that these are 2 longstanding members and I think one thing that Brantford does is fortunate is our, as acknowledged in the citizens' remarks, our strong financial standing. So with that, I will support the reappointments of Victor Casella and Charles Shelton. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass unanimously. Thank you. Item 6, any other business? Any other business?
A comment?
Okay.
I have some slides that I would appreciate if Krista can bring up to show the board. I mean, I wanted to, all right, there's one of them. The last meeting, or one of the meetings, the first selectman and I were kind of going back and forth as to where the Greenway Trail is down at Tabor. This is from Google Maps, and I don't know if I can, can you see my arrow?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Well, this is where Google Maps has the Greenway Trail. You can see it's even listed. And you said, no, it's not there. And I wasn't really familiar with it at the time because I didn't go down there. This is not the Greenway Trail. This is listed incorrectly. The Greenway Trail is up above. This is the utility road, so to speak.
Correct.
So this is the Greenway Trail. You park over here, you go down a little bit, you go up, if I'm not mistaken, you come across, and this is like a roughly 10-foot road that goes pretty much longitudinally across the property, across by Chet's Pond, and it comes off on Pine Orchard Road. The question is, and this is the labyrinth over here, right in the center of everything, which, lovely labyrinth, fine. But the question remains, and it's coming before the RTM, but I wanted to bring it before the Board of Selectmen, is why are we putting a road in the middle of 70 acres that has a lot more potential than just a hiking trail across it? And to me, that was terrible planning. I don't care if it came before, this administration took office or not, but, I don't know what you're thinking, because that road is not going to be easily removed. You're continuing to put things in there like the labyrinth. I was at the Community Forest Commission meeting the other night. They said that you're talking about putting some sort of a tree farm down there. Well, where's that going to go? And it seems to me, First Selectman Costco, what you're doing is you're giving this 70 acres away, including the solar farm over here. Not that you gave that away, but you're giving this away for other uses with really no authority to do so. And this is an RTM matter. I mean, the RTM is going to have to deal with this. I mean, you're basically taking a 70-acre piece of property now. It was 77 acres that the town paid dearly for, as you know better than anybody, or as well as anybody, $20 million of upwards of that, and doing what with it? It was earmarked for, ball fields. J.C. Wyatt, I said many times, had an interesting idea for a golf course. But what are we doing? Turning it into some sort of a nature preserve? Are we turning an $8 million or $9 million minimum asset into a nature preserve on whose authority? Yours?
Okay, just, I'll provide a response. Just to clarify, though, when you were referring to the road, you're referring to the Shoreline Greenway Trail, correct?
Yeah, it's a road. It's 10 feet wide.
Yeah, 10 feet wide. It's meant to be 10 feet wide and a hard surface to allow accessibility for all people. And again, it's not. We don't have to go around on this. I mean, as you stated that it's, mismarked on the Google Maps. It does follow the northern edge and the property. One other thing I would just add, though, quickly, because you cannot see it on your slide there, Wayne, is where the trail continues to follow towards the west. The other way, heading towards Tabor. That is actually following along the water course for the outflow of the spring-fed pond that goes through there. So in terms of that is falling right along it. So where it appears you're maybe dissecting valuable land that would be ripe for development, that is not the case in that area. In terms of your question, where is the master plan, and that these are just decisions that are made unilaterally? Well, the record clearly shows that both the Greenway Trail and the solar array have been discussed at multiple meetings through different boards and commissions, different approval processes. So neither project was just built, a unilateral decision unilaterally. In terms of master plan, again, all these parcels or these projects, like I said, have been discussed. I'm opposed to development down in that area, and when I mean development, any high intensive use in terms of that would require buildings. Obviously we're all aware of the public works, but I would even say any other type of use. And a large reason is just the cost of development. That which I know you've heard me state many years ago that the development cost or to put an actual facility of some type down there would be exorbitant. And quite honestly, when they built that solar array, that claim was validated. The problems they had trying to get those in there, those footings in for those solar arrays, validated the fact that that is going to be a challenging site to develop. But you know what? While we're on the topic, I'll expand a little bit further to the west. We also acquired the Zawalik parcel. Right. And that was about 14 acres. Why did we do that? I said we don't want to get into another situation that the town, with that, and we want to be able. I think with that area, there's a lot of potential in terms of best suited for the town to control. And there was about 7 acres of developable land on that Zawalik parcel, which again, I stated when I went before the many boards and commissions and got the approval to purchase that property, that, it was best suited for the town to control. Myself, as far as, this administration's concerned, I do not see development occurring down there. I would not be a proponent of development down on that site. And if a future administration or a generation in Branford wants to consider something, so be it. That is the process. But, when you talk a lot about accountability, and you know what, this is my position. This has been my position. Come November 2021, the voters will hold me accountable if they don't share the same thought. So just one last comment, because to answer. So as far as at this point in time, as you know, I mean, we have a lot of projects and a lot of different things going on in this town, and, to spend time, resources, staff time, dollars, funding a master plan when there's, I have not been aware of a development or another need for that property that would require a master plan development. If something should come forward, we'll discuss that, and it'll go through the process.
That's the whole reason to have a meeting, to have a public hearing, to have, discussions about it, so you can, hear people's ideas. And as far as, this will come up in the RTM, will come up in committee, but this is, your answers are, with all respect, far from satisfactory. The truth of the matter is, I don't see why you had to follow so-called water course here with this trail, when you could have put the trail down below where the utility road is and kept the property intact, and at least have the, sort of a clean slate to work with, water course and all. So that doesn't, that dog doesn't hunt, to tell you the truth. As far as, the other, hang on a second, the other stuff that you talked about, like, well, we don't want development down there. Well, nobody's talking about public works anymore. We're talking about things like ball fields, possible golf course, could have been a real nice use. And I don't think the neighbors would have complained, because whose house ever went down in value because it was near a golf course? So, those are the things that need to be put on the table, and other uses. But again, if you sit there and say to yourself, well, I don't want development of any sort down there, I'm going to put labyrinths and tree farms and hiking trails, well, then we'll never know the possibilities. And that really, to be honest with you, that is not your sole authority. And the other thing is, too, nobody's complaining about, well, I'm not complaining tonight about the solar field. All right, you kind of tucked it off to its side. I know that went through the RTM, but the Greenway Trail didn't go through the RTM. That was pretty much just pushed through. And the RTM has absolute authority in this matter. Anything to do with real estate. You're going to tell me the RTM is not going to care that you're taking 70 acres of town-owned property and doing whatever you want with it without them knowing about it? That's what the RTM is there for. So again, we can go back and forth. This will come up probably in the fall at the RTM. It's a petition item. But, I think there's real concerns down there. Real concerns. Can I go to the next slide?
All right. We could discuss it later. But one last thing, the Shoreline Greenway Trail in its placement, actually, if you really look at our zoning and have an understanding of developing land, placing on the utility road would not be the place you would want to do.
Again,
it actually doesn't, but that's good. Move on.
No, but okay, that's fine. But explain it to the community.
I'm explaining it to you now. It's and it was explained at the time. It was.
No, it was not explained at the time. How was it explained at the time if it never went through the RTM?
Wait. We don't have to debate this tonight, but I said it many times. This went through a process. The layout, which you want to say no, but it's clearly documented, which extended, which started way before my administration, and it was always meant to hug the north edge of the developable part. It went to the north edge of the railroad tracks, north edge of the pond. You can't develop a pond, and then along a water course. The one discussion that came out was, which I referred to several meetings ago, is the dog leg, because it had to terminate at a parking lot.
It's fine. I get that part. But my point is, it went through a process. It went through your process. It didn't go through the correct process, because that would have taken it directly through the RTM. And we could have vetted all this, and it would have been out, and you could have explained your whole water course, argument and all that, but nobody heard it. So, we can go, it's going to come up again. Krista, the slide. Then, the next one is this, and I don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but these piles have been sitting out in front of the, Atlantic Wharf site for going on, I think it's 3 years. And I don't care what anyone says. I don't think that East Shore Health and, the director up there shooting straight about this. I don't think these piles have ever been tested. And you got up in front of the RTM First Selectman and said, oh, there's nothing to worry about. Well, that's what people down there think. You got a lot of people in that area that live there that have dust blowing all over the place, including, their houses, that are real concerned about this. And I'd like to see, I sent a 2-page letter to the director of East Shore Health listing 9 questions after you spoke. He never answered it one bit. So again, this is coming out. The next one I want to go to, please, Chris.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to speak to it, that's fine.
Well, yeah, because you made a claim, and I just, once again, and why I spoke to at the RTM, I think it's important for the public that may be hearing this, of what did occur when concern was expressed regarding the piles at the site. So I had contacted, East Shore, the director of East Shore District Health Department, who, as well as, and again, I believe I saw an email that was sent actually in response to you and sent to you. So maybe check your emails. But he had also contacted the Department of Public Health, which there was a response from the Commissioner of Department of Public Health that stated that they evaluated the reports, they evaluated what was provided to them, and they see no imminent health risk due to the piles that are there on site. After that, I did follow up once again with the director, who, because there was questions regarding the brick. This is all well documented. Came in, he took a few samples of the brick itself. And brought those to have those tested to see what it, and reported back that they contain no substance.
Well, I'm sorry, but we never saw that. As far as the letter from the state, they never addressed the piles per se. They never really did. You didn't address the piles per se. I mean, clearly the site has been pretty much leveled except for the piles, but the piles are what concerns people. And I'd like to see the reports that came back from those bricks, because I never saw any reports from him testing bricks. And the fact of the matter is, I sent that letter. It was a pretty, thorough letter, and he never responded to it. You got copies of it. Everybody got copies of it.
No, and just once again, for the public's benefit, the question was clearly on the current condition and the piles of,
this will come up before the RTM. We can go back and forth.
I know what I asked, and that's what I asked. So
you asked what you asked. I asked what I asked, and I'm telling you right now that what I asked was not answered. Period. I mean, I'll send you the letter again.
Okay.
And as far as getting an email, that was an email before I sent the final letter. I mean, come on. I mean, one thing you got to know about me, Jamie, is I'm pretty thorough. Not that you're not, but the truth of the matter is, when I say that we sent a letter that was never answered, you can pretty much count on that. All right, the next one is, just the issue coming up is, now this is a fiasco. This is a joke. I mean, this is just a tragic joke. What the land trust did, and I want the community to know what the land trust did to Jay Medlin's property and Leeds Island Road. This isn't even during a hurricane. This is during like a relatively moderate, maybe slightly heavy storm. This is what happens down there. This is completely destroying the infrastructure of the road, 146. It ruined his farm, completely destroyed his irrigation farm with, salt water, killing trees down there. Our family's got 3 acres of salt marsh, which I don't go down there and visit often, but I mean, killing trees all over there. And why? Because the land trust, specifically Bill Horn and John Lust, who was working with him, found it in their infinite wisdom to take out a berm to build this catwalk, which they didn't have a permit to do. Can you imagine if I went into the coastal wetlands and built and did what they did? I'd be in jail right now. You'd have every environmentalist in town looking for my hide more than they are. And the truth of the matter is they did that. They went in there, they took out a berm, they built this catwalk, which is very shoddy construction. They didn't have a permit for anything. They say, well, we got, Army Corps of Engineers. Yeah, because you lied to the Army Corps of Engineers. This is all documented. And what did you do, First Selectman? Jay asked you for help, and you basically, along with the other politicians or public officials, turned your back. You're on your own. Well, how can Jay be on his own if the town never gave permits for these things to happen? again, this falls directly on the purview of the town. And the town once again fell down. Again, we'll consider this. And you got a lot of other people down there other than Jay and his family that were affected by this. You just look at this picture and you tell me everything's fine. It's not fine. And, you know, say, then like you got a guy like Peter Raymond, and I hope he's listening to this, saying, oh, it's the sea level rise that caused it. You know, my foot is the sea level rise. This happened only after they took the berm out. Before that, it was no problem. So, I mean, what's that? Some sort of magical coincidence that the berm comes out and it floods, but before them, there was no sea level rise? Give me a break. This is the kind of stuff that goes on. And then last but not least is Tabor. All right? Now, this will come up in the RTM too, and I'm not going to address our lawsuit. I'm going to address the investigation, which you promised. Now, your pal, and I wish he was here tonight because he doesn't show up anymore. I guess he's too busy doing restaurant reviews. But, you know, he came out with this investigation initially. There was a serious problem in the Costco application to the point where he went out and called it, you can see it, corruption, collusion, lies in the inland wetlands peer review. Now, why did he say that? Next slide, please, Krista. Because Diana Ross took the final copy of the peer review. God knows what she did to the other copies. And she changed them to make sure that Costco was going to get denied. And their writing's all over it. And she admitted it's all over this independent peer review. And that's not even considering the emails that went back and forth and the interaction between her and members of the BCRD, this group opposing Costco. This was so corrupt. This was so fraudulent. Nobody could ever question it. And, you know, and again, your friend Mazzacane, he uncovered it. Good for him. But since that time, you know, he's just run for the hills. He has nothing to say about it. He wants to blame it on Cook wanting too much money for the property. That is such nonsense. That is just a bald-faced lie. And when he goes on his podcast and tells people about it, and I go to defend myself, what does he do? He blocks me. Oh, that's real heroic. That's real, you know, that's real courageous. Well, that's what he does. Next slide, please, Krista. But, you know, in all of that, you called for an investigation. Investigation, we're going to find out what happened before Costco withdrew. You called for an investigation. It's clearly right there. Town investigating. And your words were exactly, next slide, please, Krista. Here's your words. I think I can see it. We are currently engaged in a careful review of the issues and information raised in the recent press report regarding the conduct of certain individuals involved in the Costco wetlands application process. I want to assure the citizen of Brantford that we intend to take every appropriate and necessary step in response to the facts to ensure an open and fair process for all applicants, interveners, and taxpayers of the town. You didn't do it. You know what you did? You know what you did. You got some staff labor attorney. Why you appointed a labor attorney to this, to look into this? And what does the guy do? He comes back with some half-baked draft report. I don't even know if it's a report, a draft letter saying to your satisfaction that everything's okay. I mean, let's put this in perspective. This is a $50 million economic development project that the entire town, for the most part, wanted to happen. I mean, let's just put that in perspective. And you got this renegade group led by Shapiro and Ross that did everything they could to stop it, including fraudulently manipulating an independent peer review. And not only did they do that, but you can see in the emails, not only did they want to stop the project, but this is right in the emails, they wanted to make sure that the denial held up in court. I mean, give me a break. What does the inland wetland director care if a denial holds up in court? Because they didn't want it. So you called for this investigation. We come down with this ridiculous draft theory from a labor attorney. I mean, this is fraud we're talking about. This is quite possibly a criminal act. And you enlist a labor attorney, and then everybody wants to see the letter. And you say, first of all, no, it's a personnel matter. Well, no, it's not. It's a town matter. It's a regulatory process matter. Then the second selectman says that he wants to see it, and you say it's attorney-client privilege. Well, who's the attorney work for, first selectman? You? Does he work personally for you, or does he work for the town? And if he works for the town, how come the town selectmen, including, you know, Selectman Dunbar and now Selectman Higgins, how come they can't see it? Why don't you just give it to them? They have a perfect right. I mean, the people put them there for a reason. Why can't they see this mysterious letter? Where is it? And, and just to be real clear about something, it's a final slide, please. This is important. This is going to come up in the RTM too. People saying, the reason was because, Costco took off because it was too expensive and Cook wanted too much money and that's all there was to it. No. Couple of reasons I want to be real clear about this. Costco left primarily, almost exclusively because of this corruption. That's what they left for. And you look all over the country, Costco does not spend a lot of time at all fighting municipalities. If the municipality plays games with them, they just take off. They're just gone. And that's what they did. And in 2 meetings, I wanted clarification. The first meeting was on November 2017. Charlie Weber, who was the other developer on the property, along with ourselves, the property owners, I asked Joe Montesano, the head guy for Costco. I said, why did Costco leave and not come back? And he said, on everything important to me, because Diana Ross is still there. In other words, the town is still corrupt. And I looked at Charlie and I said, Charlie, remember he said that. And those are exactly the words. A few months later, we had another meeting when Costco was coming and finally saying they're not coming at all. So Charlie's office, the guy, Ernie Anaboli, and then Lou Proto, the realtor, and then another Costco guy, Mark Marcagiano, the telling us this. So I looked at Ernie Anaboli, the head guy, and I said, so the reason Costco is building in East Lyme and not in Brantford is because our town is corrupt and theirs isn't. And he looked at me and he said, yes. And that's exactly what happened. So when you saw those signs up last summer and people say, what's Cook doing with this corrupt business all over the place? That's what I was talking about and a lot of other things in this town. So again, this will come up before the RTM, but I wanted to bring it to you first because it started with you. It started with you. And this ridiculous investigation that you tried to somehow pawn off on us, that it's going to fly. No, we're not that stupid. And then again, I would ask, and I don't have to ask, because I'd like them to ask, I would like you to give to the 2 selectmen this letter. Let's see what it says. Cost the town $50 million. Let's see what it says. Not $50 million per se, but $50 million in terms of the project. And then over the course of time, you had probably a $30 million tax revenue coming. You had hundreds of jobs. You had God knows what advantage Costco would have brought to the entire area. It's gone. Why? Because of fraud. Because of fraud and corruption stemming from the Inland Wetlands Commission and the Inland Wetlands Department. And with all respect, you covered it up. You covered it up.
Okay, obviously we disagree. We disagree on that as far as your cover up. I mean, and I think it's pretty well documented that I was a proponent of Costco for many different benefits that I thought they would bring. I stated that publicly on the record multiple times. There was we don't need to rehash them right now. I was disappointed when they withdrew. I did look into it. One clarification: you continue to use the term independent peer review. In terms of staff's position, the peer review, that's not a correct term, independent. It's a peer review, which is essentially an extension of staff. I'm sure, for those who follow, whether it's wetlands or even zoning meetings, you often hear if there's a peer review or, they're working with staff and there's or the staff reports are provided. It is the obligation of the commission members to adhere to the town regulations and consider the project based on the information that they have and apply the regulations to an application. I think it's also well documented, not only my support, as I said, for the project, but also where I felt that there needed to be changes on the Inland Wetlands Commission. I think that's pretty well documented in a number of articles that you may want to cite. So as far as I just to say that I certainly stand by my position as being a proponent of a fair process. And I think Selectman Dunbar had a comment, so I'll let him make a comment.
Can I just make a point to yours just quickly? If that's all, I mean, we know you ran on Costco, and that's no bulletin. And, as far as the peer review, yes, it is an independent peer review. You can't have the Inland Wetlands Director inserting her comments to stop the project. And that's exactly what she did. And there was more to it than that, which clearly we can go through in the RTM, but they'll see. And the other thing is, too, to be, really honest with you, if all those things are true, just give Selectman Dunbar and Selectman Higgins the letter. Just give them the letter.
All right, Selectman Dunbar has one.
So there's no question that there's concern between myself, I'm sure the whole board here, and the residents, the constant claims of corruption and so forth. So with this one, I'm gonna side with, if possible, for at least this board, and I'll ask you, Jamie, maybe to talk to town attorney, because I realize there's a lawsuit going on. So some things can be given, some things can't be given out, and I'm good with that. But if possible, if we can get a ruling from the town attorney, where at least to start with, that myself and Selectman Higgins with you can see what took place, to see what's going on. I realize that would be confidential at that point in time. But the second part, I guess I want, because it's not going to go away, as we know, it's going to keep, and the RTM is going to be dealing with in September. If we can ask the town attorney at what point in time this information would be available to the residents so that they know there's no corruption. Mm-hmm. And if there was an issue that had to be dealt with, and sometimes there are, okay, and whatever the legalities of that are. But I think this is one of those things. I know Attorney Ryan, I'm sure he did a very diligent job when he looked into the matter, whatever his charge was given for it. But at some point in time, I think yourself, the rest of the board, and the citizens, if we can give the residents some closure with the attorney's approval, because obviously they're going to dictate this, I think that would be a positive thing. So if maybe you can just ask them what the situation is and where we could go with that, I'd appreciate it. And I think at some point in time, I think the residents would, because obviously besides us, every 2 weeks, the residents are obviously going through this also. And maybe it would clear up some things. But again, you'd have to work that out with the labor attorney, the town attorney, however it's intermixed. But if we could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Just to Selectman Dunbar's point, and that's fine, fine with me. The more information out there, the better. But you have to ask yourself, Selectman Dunbar, if this letter was that convincing, why isn't this first selectman bringing it out for everybody to see? I think that really begs the question. If this was so conclusive that, you're going to throw away, all the advantages that Costco brought and, and face a pending lawsuit and all this, well, then bring the letter out. What are you hiding?
I think if you, and I'm sure you did listen, my request was to see how we could see it and then have the public see it when possible. So that request is also there. Obviously, the residents of the town have a right to know what's going on in the town and the money they spent, but it has to be done through the proper channels. I think this way here will at least start that process.
Fine. That's fine.
Yep, and thank you, Selectman Dunbar. And just to clarify, the town is being represented by Attorney Gerard, who's appointed by our insurance company. So that's who the discussion was, because as you mentioned, there is
not necessarily. Excuse me. I have to clarify that. And this is true. The lawsuit that I personally am bringing against the town, actually it's against Shapiro and Ross, is a civil rights lawsuit, which is being defended by the insurance company. This investigation, and the reason I'm talking about it so freely, is a separate matter. It's really a separate matter. We could go into the various details of what happened with Costco, but what I'm asking is, and now what Selectman Dunbar is asking is, where's the investigation? Which has really nothing to do with our lawsuit.
For the public's benefit, to clarify that there is a pending lawsuit, which you just acknowledged, against two individuals. I mentioned, because they said, Selectman Dunbar mentioned about speaking to the town attorney as well as town Attorney Ryan. The point is that there is a pending lawsuit, which we're represented by Attorney Gerard. The discussion would have to be, you know what, quite honestly, yeah, if I was doing this for solely my own personal political gain, I would, I'm aware of it. I don't necessarily have an issue, but we also have to look at the bigger picture and what the town is addressing, and I have to listen to the town attorneys at that point. I think that's your comment, Attorney Dunbar, Selectman Dunbar. I will discuss it with the attorneys and report back to the Selectwoman Higgins and Selectman Dunbar on.
All right, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Just one clarification to your clarification. The investigation was asked for long before the lawsuit came around. So it's not like this is something, afterwards and, you can't. No, you should have released this a long time ago, long before the lawsuit. I'll finish with that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other business? All right. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Have a good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Brantford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at brantfordtv.org.